All right, so are annuities bad? You might hear Ken Fisher, I hate annuities, and that's wrong. Are annuities good? They're inanimate objects, just like firearms, just like food. Anything you do that has no life or soul can neither be bad nor good. It just is. So annuities, just like all those other things, are neither good nor bad. They just are. But there are some examples of good annuities. And I've talked a million times this Sunday about how I do like income annuities. I'm a big fan of income annuities. But I'm going to share with you an example today of what a good annuity is and how you should look for one if you have access to an insurance company that provides this type of annuity. So welcome to Heritage Wealth Planning YouTube channel, my friends, the place you come to learn all about annuities, good, bad, or ugly. And there are some of each, that's for sure. The vast majority are ugly. All right, well, not the vast majority. The majority are ugly, but there are some good ones, and there's certainly some bad ones too. But here, I'm going to share with you a good annuity. All right, so I don't like variable annuities, generally speaking. I think there's some cases where you can make a case that they're worthwhile, as I've talked to in other videos. And I'm generally not a huge fan of fixed annuities. Generally speaking, I'm okay with fixed annuities because it's a fixed rate. You know what you're getting. They are tax deferred, and so the interest, the taxes that you defer on the interest is also accumulating interest. So there's some benefit of double tax growth, if you will, or double growth on the interest because you're not paying tax on it. And just generally speaking, the rates on a fixed annuity are close enough to a CD that you're not really getting a huge gain, especially when you're locking up your money for 5 to 7 years, especially when it's taxable as ordinary income when it comes out anyway. But that's a case-by-case scenario. If you can get an annuity, a 5-year annuity that's paying you 5% and a 5-year CD that's paying 3%, and the annuity is favorable to me without question. Annuities are not FDIC insured. Just be advised. They are not FDIC insured. They are backed by the claims paying ability of the insurance company. So if you're buying some fly-by-night annuity by a fly-by-night insurance company, was it Caviar or mTOR, whatever it's called, buyer beware. But all right, so if we got it, let's just assume we have a legitimate insurance company. In this case, we'll use USA. All right, so USA is where I worked for many years, 4 generations of membership, so I'm a fan of USA, one of the strongest rated insurance companies out there. I got a whole assortment of annuities. They don't have any variable, at least they did not. They do have fixed deferred annuities, and they do have income annuities. So we're going to talk about a fixed deferred annuity, but actually, when I say fixed, it might be different than what you're thinking about. So a typical fixed annuity is pretty simple, actually. You put $100,000 in there, you get 5% a year. Next year, you got 100,000, 105,000. It's literally how it works. You put 100,000 bucks in, you get 5% a year. If it's compounding or simple, it's up to what the contract says. But you know, very simply, now let's just use a simple one here. Oops. That's simple. So you got 5%, 5%, 5%. That's just simple interest rate. You know you're getting $5,000 a year each and every year for as long as the contract stays in force. No risk, no muss, no fuss, easy as pie. The drawback is the surrender charge. A lot of annuities have pretty significant surrender charges. We'll just say 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So what happens with a 5% surrender charge? You always, in most annuities, I'm just going to say always because this is all I've seen. I'm sure there are others out there. You always have access to 10% of your premium, 10% of the account value. So let's say in 2 years you want $20,000. In 2 years you want $20,000. So in 2 years we're at 4% surrender charge. So the first thing you do, let's erase this. All right. So in 2 years, you get $110,000 in there, and you want $20,000. So you always have access to 10%. So if we take $110,000, we minus by 10%. That means 110,000 times 0.1. 11,000 is free and clear of any surrender charge. 11,000 is free of any surrender charge. So we have 110. We need 20,000 bucks. Minus 10%, because that's free of any surrender charge. So $11,000 is free and clear of any surrender charge. But that doesn't give us a full $20,000. We still need $9,000, and that will be subject to a 4% surrender charge, which would be, what's that, $360. So to take $20,000 out is going to cost you $360. Really not that big of a deal, but you know, there it is. That's $360 for a 4-year. If you're in the second year of a 5-year surrender cycle, it's going to cost you $360. Just, you always got to remember, you get the first 10% for free, the 10% of the account value, not of the premium amount that you put in initially, the account value. So you get the first 10% for free, and then you take out the remainder, and that is what's subject to the surrender charge. The first 10% or $11,000 here is free and clear. The next $9,000 is subject to the surrender charge. Just keep that. I think a lot of people overlook that. All right, so let's keep going. And then after year 5, it's all free and clear. So whatever the account balance is after year 5, you have it free and clear of any surrender charge. Be advised that on an annuity, if you're under the age of 59.5, it's just like an IRA. If you take that money out before you're 59.5, it is subject to a 10% penalty, an IRS penalty. So just keep that in mind. Annuities work like an IRA. I had someone, let's just put this, someone very dear to me called USAA. She needed to park some money for about a year and a half, and she was only 40, I think 38 years old, if even that. And because she's going to buy a house in a year and a half or two. And USAA, the person she talked to on the phone, said she should do an annuity. This person is a master's of financial planning, a CFP, went to an officer of the Navy. She knows a thing or two. And to be told by a USA phone rep that she should dump her short-term money into an annuity, you got to be careful on these phone jocks. I'm telling you. I was one at Vanguard. I'm telling you right now, it's scary. All right. So I want to show you what the good annuity is. So a good annuity would be something that you can add to later on. All right. So 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So let me show you an example that I'm working with. Just had a client the other day, a good friend of mine who's a client nonetheless. He had $100,000 in the good annuity. And the good annuity is a deferred annuity, not fixed, because fixed implies that the rate of return is fixed. It's deferred annuity, which means he cannot lose money, again, as long as the insurance company stays solvent. But because it's deferred, he's not receiving any taxable income while he's deferring it. But because it's not fixed, the interest rate changes, which it could change for the better or for the worse, depending on what the markets do. But he has the ability to add to it later on down the road, and that's what we're contending with here. So he put $100,000 as his initial annuity, and I don't even know what the minimum interest rate was. We'll just say 2. All right, so 2%. Whatever, I literally don't care. It's just whatever it is what it is. That interest rate stayed flat. That interest rate won't change much because literally what annuity providers, insurance companies are, they're taking this $100,000 and they're going out in the market and buying intermediate government and highly rated corporate bonds. They 10 to 15 years. And so this $100,000 is backed essentially by the interest rate that they're receiving on highly rated and intermediate to longer term government bonds. And those interest rates don't change either very often. So the idea that this amount of money is going to change in interest simply won't happen because it is backed by longer to intermediate term bonds. It's just not going to change. But if he were to put another $100,000, we'll say it's year 5, and we'll say interest rates have changed at that point. Now it's paying 3% because interest rates have gone up. And this USAA, in this case, is doing the same thing. They're taking your $100,000, they're going out in the market and buying 10 to 15-year government and highly rated corporate bonds, and that's the rate you're going to get. So now if you look at it, we have, and not, it's going to be a real simple example, but we have combined $200,000 is paying 2.5 because you got 100,000 paying 3, 100,000 paying 2. Again, it's a little bit more complex than that because this actually has some interest accumulated in it, but just for simplicity, you've actually increased your annuity rate because you've added, in terms of your effective rate on the entirety of the contract, because before it's 2%, now it's 2.5, all right? Now, you also reduce the rate on this account if you look at the effective amount of the contract, but essentially, you were getting 2, now you're getting 2.5 on a $200,000 contract. Well, that's the way it works. So now we go back to year 7, and now we'll say the interest rates are 4%. So what's USAA doing? They're taking that $100,000. They're going out in the market. They're buying 10 to 15-year government and highly rated corporate bonds. They're paying 4% now. So that rate's not likely going to change, all right? So in 7 years, we've gone from 2 to 3 to 4. That is not going to change. Now, here's the interesting thing. If you can, because we've added to this annuity, it's a deferred annuity that takes additional deposits. That's what you got to be looking at. So remember, this is a 7-year surrender charge because we started the contract out with it. If he were to touch this more than a 10%, which I just showed you in another video, he would pay a surrender charge on the amount that he took out above and beyond the 10% that he gets for free. Now, this does not have a 7-year surrender charge because he did it in year 5. So right here, he only has 5 more years left of surrender charge. He did this for 7 years, put another $100,000 after year 2, so he has 5 more years on surrender charge. And then in year 6, we'll just say he put another $100,000 in. So this right here only has another year or 2, depending on the exact year he did. So remember, $100,000, 7-year surrender charge, $100,000 a 5-year surrender charge, $100,000 a 2-year surrender charge. Does that make sense? So you're adding you're adding the additional deposits, but you're not increasing the surrender charge or how quickly the liquidity you have of the contract. So let me show you what I mean by this. This is critically important. So again, these are deferred annuities that you can add to without increasing your surrender charge schedule. And that's what you got to be looking at. So before anyone says annuities are bad, I would like to see how a bond can compare this, because it's not even close. It's not even close. Not even close. A bond cannot compare to a deferred annuity that you can add to. A laddered bond portfolio, for instance. People are like, I'll ladder my bond portfolio. It's not nearly the same benefit of a deferred annuity in which you can add to. Now I'm going to show you why. All right, so now we're in year 8. All right, so he's out of surrender charge. I mean, he has access to the entirety of the account. And we'll just say it's $300,000 for simplicity. We'll just say it's $300,000. So now he can take the whole thing out if he wanted. But remember, it's paying about 3%. Because it paid 2% on the $100,000, 3% on the $100,000, and 4% on the $100,000. Again, this is just a generalization. You'd have to look into specifics, but essentially 2, 3, 4, you divide that by 3, it's 3%. So you get 3% on $300,000 or $9,000 a year. So now what happens? He has a CD that just matured, all right? He's like, man, I got a CD that just matured for $100,000. And it's a 2-year CD. So the CD company, I was getting 3%. Now I'm only going to get 2% for simplicity, whatever. The CD just matured. So I get one of 2 choices. I can reinvest that CD, all right? I can put it into a bond, or I can, what? You can put it into this guy right here. Huh. But what happens if I put it in there? So remember, the choices are CD at 2%, again, a 2-year CD, whatever it is. A bond, we'll just say the bond because it's a 10-year bond. I mean, no, well, you don't want to lock up your money for 10 years. I say, how long do you want to lock up your money for? No more than 5 years. So a 5-year bond, we'll just say, we'll say 3%. Or this annuity. And the annuity was paying what? Do you remember? Well, 2% the first year, 3% in year 5, whatever it was, 4% in year 6 or 7. Well, let's just say the rates have dropped to 3.5. So his options are 2-year CD for 2 years. So he locks up his money for 2 years. He gets a CD. He's only getting 2% a year. A 5-year bond, locks up his money for 5 years. He's getting 3% a year. No guarantee, by the way, because bonds are not guaranteed other than the government bonds. If it's a corporate bond, it could certainly go bankrupt. It might not, but it could. Or the annuity at 3.5%. Which is the best? Well, the annuity is not guaranteed like a CD. If this was a government bond, the annuity is not guaranteed by the feds. If it's a corporate bond, the annuity actually has less risk than the corporate bond because the annuity is 100% guaranteed by the insurance company as long as the insurance company is highly rated. Well, all insurance companies that guarantee their annuities, you just don't want a fly-by-night insurance company. So he says, I'm going to put the $100,000 and I'd like to get the most bang for my buck. But wait, don't you know about the surrender charge on the annuities? Yes, in this case, there is no surrender charge because he's already gone through the 7-year surrender charge cycle. So he can put $100,000 in that annuity, guaranteed by the insurance company. He can get his guarantee. He will not lose money as long as the insurance company goes bankrupt. And right now, he's getting that 3.5%. Now, that 3.5% is not guaranteed. All right, so they can change it anytime they want, and they probably won't, simply because they are using your $100,000, and they're going out in the market, and they're buying long-term corporate bonds and long-term government bonds, 15 years, 7 to 15 years or so. So it's not likely to change, but theoretically it could, where these two cannot. The 2% and 3% cannot change. That's a fact. But he has unencumbered access to the entirety of the $400,000. Is free and clear of any further surrender charge because the 7% surrender charge has gone, the 7% surrender cycle is behind us now. So I said, this is exactly what I had with this guy. I said, well, you got 2% CD, 3% bonds, or you could dump it into your annuity. It's getting 3.5%, and it's completely liquid and is guaranteed, in this case, by USAA. What do you think is a better option? And of course, he said the annuity. I said, absolutely. Now, you can't write checks against that or anything. And when you do take it out, it will be taxed as income on your capital gain. That's a fact, not your capital gain, on your deferred interest. So at this stage, he has $400,000 and it grows to, $430,000. And he says, I don't like the annuity anymore. I'm going to put it into a bond. He's going to pay tax on that $30,000 as ordinary income because that is a deferred taxation. It's a drawback about annuities. But when you look at after taxes on annuities versus after taxes on bonds or after taxes on CDs, it's still beneficial. But the issue is here, he can take that money out whenever he wants. He can add to it, take it out. So let's just say a few years down the road, this CD, he's still only getting 3.5% because, again, those bonds are backed by longer-term corporate and government bonds. And now he can get 5% on a CD for 2 years. Well, in that case, you say, well, forget that. Let's move that $430,000 into this CD and get 5%. He might only be locking up his money for 2 years. I don't know what it would be. But you can move it back and forth from the annuity to the CD. And from the CD to the annuity, you can do whatever you want. The only drawback is once you do it, you're going to pay income tax on the deferred interest that you've received. That's it. But there are times when a deferred annuity is good. And it is good when you can access it without, you can add further deposits. The first thing you got to add is, can I make further deposits? Yes or no? If the answer is yes, will the further deposits have an additional surrender charge, or will it still be on the initial surrender charge cycle when I first open the contract? Now, you got to understand that because I'm telling you, a lot of phone people don't know. I'm just telling you right now. So you got to say, look, if I add 4 years down the road and I add another $100,000, what happens to the surrender charge on that under $100,000? So let me give you another example. I had a guy who had an American Express, a 5% annuity just like this, all right? Completely liquid, completely free of any further surrender charges, but at a 5% minimum guarantee because he took it out like 1990 or something like that. He's getting ready to retire. He said, what should I do with my rollover money? I'm talking to a broker. He thinks I should roll it to stocks or whatever it was. I said, and this is the nice thing about having worked at USAA because we weren't paid commissions, you could give advice. I said, what's that American Express annuity? You only have like $35,000 in there. He said, oh yeah, I've had that for a long time. It's paying like 5%. It's pretty good, man. I wish I could get that again because it's guaranteed by American Express, blah, blah, blah. I said, do you know if you can roll money into it? And he goes, I don't think so. I said, let's call him up. Call him up on the phone, said American Express, can he move money into this deferred annuity? Yes. Is it guaranteed at 5% because that's a guaranteed minimum on the contract? Yes. What's the surrender charge if he puts this $250,000 rollover into that and he takes out a year from now? None. 5% guarantee from American Express, no surrender charge whatsoever, and no commission in that case either to go into it because he has already had the account open for a long time. So when I hear Ken Fisher and other investment gurus say, I don't like annuities, they should go bonds instead, I just chuckle. They don't know what they're talking about, man. There are times when annuities are beneficial relative to other investments, and this is one of them. So the issue is a deferred annuity that you can add future deposits to without an additional surrender charge. Deferred annuity, add additional deposits to with no further surrender charge. That's what you're looking at right there. And make sure it's in a highly rated insurance company. And most of the big ones, Nationwide, Northwestern, USA, these are all fine. I mean, at the end of the day, you have to do your research, but man, that is what you should be looking at when it comes to annuities. Don't just write them off. Can't tell you how many people say, I don't want to talk about annuities. Ah. I said, but you don't understand. Annuities are evil. Ken Fisher and all the investment guys said they're bad. I'm like, oh, okay. Don't be that guy. All right, so if you like what you see here, comments, questions, concerns, put them down below. Don't forget to let me know what's going on with your situation. If you have a question on that, say, hey, this is what I'm thinking about. What do you think? Or whatever you want to do. And I'll do my best to answer it. Obviously, I can't make recommendations on YouTube. That's crazy. But you can run something by me. That's fine. And we'll see you next time. Thanks now.